Yeah, it's pretty standard. The company, whichever company, in this case we're talking about Bombardier, but companies are going to come up with their product lines, and usually they want them numerically similar, or they want the numbers to represent the range of the product or whatever it is. So there is an official model designation, and that the product is known by, but OEMs, type certificate holders, can come up with marketing designations, and the marketing designations will be called out in the TCDS, or different serial number ranges might be called something different, and those would be described in the notes of the TCDS. So yeah, you want to go by the model because that is the legal type, but the marketing designations are kind of the colloquial names that the products go by, but that relation has to be there because you don't want to have confusion. You have to know, well, what is a level aircraft? So similar to the datum point, the reference point that you're making, all your reference to for your drawings. It's similarly the same kind of thing. It's talking about aircraft is leveled longitudinally and laterally by means of a plumb bob and target in the aft equipment fuselage station. So, it's saying if you're looking at that reference point, that's where it is, and that's how the aircraft is leveled. So again, it's just another reference to, again, if you're doing fueling or weighing of aircraft, or what is a level aircraft? Well, this is how it kind of its reference point, and it would be done.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you'll see the means of leveling and the leveling datum typically in the maintenance manual as well, because they're the procedure for leveling the aircraft, right? But that's an exercise that has to be done to almost all aircraft on a scheduled basis in accordance with most regulation, right? So this is an example of where the maintainer is told specifically to reference, because every aircraft is in different location. And somebody working on one type of aircraft that now is going to another aircraft might use the seat rails in the cabin, which is common for some aircraft. So it's a point that just brings every scheduled interval brings everybody back to the same point. And also the envelope of the aircraft in the AFM, all of the calculations that are made are based on that point, right? So it's a very critical, very important point to focus on in so many aspects. But
not everything that is put on an aircraft has requirements for it. Requirements are frozen in time. They evolve. We add, authorities add new requirements. If one authority adds requirements, some authorities may adopt them, that kind of thing. But let's be realistic, technology advances a lot quicker than necessarily regulatory requirements or guidance material for that matter. So the authorities had to come up with a way of saying, okay, well, how can we certify a product that doesn't have standards for it yet? So the mechanism is the special condition. The special condition covers new and novel equipment or technology that the authority would have to say, okay, if we're going to put this on the aircraft, but we don't have any standards in our regulatory framework, in Canada in the AWM or in FAA, the 14 CFR. In this case, it's AWM 525 or Part 25 in the FAA world. There are no requirements. So how are we going to be able to certify this part of the design on the product? So the authority is going to have to draft up an issue paper, which would be the vehicle to convey the special condition, and then come up with what would be deemed to be safe requirements for that technology. So if I look at some of them, vision system video with head-up display, or side stick controller. So what that's saying is we don't have requirements for that. we need to now come up with requirements for that, and that we think would be acceptable at the authority level, and then that goes to the OEM, and then can the OEM meet those requirements? And that's why the vehicle is the issue paper, to say, okay, here's the authority position, here's the requirements you're going to have to meet. Applicant, can you meet them? And then the applicant would say, okay, we can meet them, or we can't, or we do this, or we do that. But generally, you're going to say, okay, yeah, we accept. The authority closes the issue paper, and then they're able to put out the special condition. So now that forms part of the certification basis to say, okay, for that particular function, you now have coverage from a regulatory level through the vehicle of a special condition, because it's not in the actual requirements. Now, if this technology keeps being used and is very common and other OEMs want to use it, then the authority might go, okay, maybe we treat this as a priority, and next time we do a regulatory standard update, we incorporate that in there so we don't have to keep issuing special conditions, because special conditions are issued on a one-off basis. So every product would have its own. So if other OEMs would have this, then theoretically the authority would have to issue a special condition on that product, because they're not transferable. So it's a lot of work for the authority as well. But I am still in the position where I need to certify a product. How can I do it? The vehicle is the special condition. Then, and in short, the authority will come up with requirements. The OEM will have to meet them, and then they get a special condition to say, okay, this is now certified, essentially outside of the regulatory framework, but here is the requirements that it has to meet and always has to abide by, because it's part of the certification basis. If I now do a design change in that area, these are the requirements that I now have that form the basis for the if I'm going to make a change to that area.